to your Pelvic Health Podcast. My name is Susan Winograd. I'm the owner and founder of Pelvicore Rehab, and I'm thrilled to be your host. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. Today's episode is special. I'm looking at the beautiful and my favorite Jaclyn Beck. Jackie is a business and career strategist, founder and principal of a boutique consulting and executive coaching firm launched after 14 years in private equity. She also happens to be a long-standing client at Pelvicore Rehab, and I could not be more thrilled to have you on, Jackie, because we always have the best time together.
We do. I am so honored that you are having me on the podcast.
Oh my gosh. I love hanging out with you. Any chance I have to spend time with you, we got to grab it, right?
Absolutely.
Jackie, I want to thank you so much for being willing to come on the show and talk about your time with us at Pelvicore Rehab. Can you tell us a little bit about your pelvic health struggles and why you came to us to begin with?
Sure. So I would say that the immediate impetus for calling you and reaching out to you was that I had just had my first child, so my son. But the long-standing rationale is my body has always been a mess a little bit. So when I was 14, I actually broke my femur.
Okay.
And then I, would always have hip pain and I'd have back pain and this would hurt and that would hurt. And then when I was living in New York City, I broke my left foot 2 consecutive summers in a row. And I always knew something was off. I always knew something was wrong. And I went to hundreds of masseuses and physical therapists and trainers who used to work on athletes to try and figure out what was going on. But it was very clear to me my body had imbalances. And as you might imagine, carrying around an 8-pound baby just helped everything get that much more off kilter. So that was originally why I reached out.
Right. It's so interesting, Jackie. You came to us after you had your beautiful son, right? So you came to us with sort of all of these imbalances that you had already experienced that you were trying to resolve. Then we have a pregnancy, right? And you're carrying another human in your body. You are releasing lots of hormones that are allowing your muscles and ligaments to stretch. Your belly is growing and that your center of gravity is always shifting. And then we have a baby. And within a matter of a few hours, everything is sort of changed, right? We build up, we're pregnant for almost a year. And then within a matter of a few hours, hopefully if we're lucky, it's a few hours, we give birth and our body has to reaccommodate then to this empty space. And when you are, the empty space that the baby once occupied. Right. And then, we are expected to bounce back and go back and do everything that we were doing before. But when we have already had some issues that are unresolved, and perhaps if we didn't go into the pregnancy as strong as we would have liked to, that can present itself with certain postpartum challenges, right?
Yeah. And I was going to say, that's a very nice way of putting it, that in a matter of a few hours, everything changes. I think I've known that I've always struggled with my core, and I would go to these therapists and I would, rectify what I thought was the problem. But what I've learned since in working with you, is that those were actually symptoms of the root cause of the problem. And whereas I thought I was exercising my core, whereas I thought I had a strong core, I was really superficially working on it, and it wasn't the deep core. And so that's why I think the pelvic floor physical therapy, it's really gets to everything, because it's the support for your spine, it's the support for your back, and it's helped me personally to stabilize my entire body, because I've had all of these imbalances, which have caused injury after injury after injury, which I just don't want to be on that cycle anymore.
Right. So we talked, first of all, you just totally stole my thunder because, no, I'm just kidding, because I was just going to talk about, generating support from the center. So, right. So when you had started probably with a core that needed a little more strengthening, you got pregnant, and then the postpartum period, I want to say that you were a little bit behind the 8 ball, if I was, to be honest with you, although it's never too late to rehabilitate, but, you're a dancer, right? You're a dancer. And you also struggled with a little bit of hyper flexibility, right? So that, to begin with, requires a strong core and a certain set of strengthening exercises. A lot of people with, hyper flexibility, they're in pain, right? Because they're so flexible and they get these like painful areas because their body doesn't have enough of a girdle to support them. So they stretch and stretch and stretch. And really what we need to do is very targeted strengthening for them to create a girdle with their muscles to create support. So, where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So I was, looking back at your initial evaluation when we first talked, and your, set of, what you were experiencing were weak core, hip pain, low back pain, knee pain, tight piriformis, and, increased symptoms when you had rotation. And what I always used to tell you was that your body is going to accomplish what it needs to accomplish, no matter how it has to get done, even if it's not efficient. So if your core is not strong enough to support you and you can't generate that support from the center, your more superficial muscles are going to accomplish that goal, right? So what was the most surprising thing about our plan of care to you?
Honestly, I don't know if it was surprising. I think what I appreciate the most about the plan of care is that I've learned so much. And so I was joking with you before we started recording, like the hip bone's connected to the thigh bone, and these things, right? But the fact that it really is a chain reaction in your body that all starts with your core, I feel like I'm much better informed now than I was when I was going to physical therapists in the past. And I have to say this, I've said this to you in private, and now I'm saying in public, you are the best physical therapist I've ever worked with in my life.
Oh, Jack,
because
thanks so much.
No, I'm serious, because it's an education, and I find that I'm a lot more committed to doing what I need to do because I know why I'm doing it.
Right. So as you know, I really feel like educating my clients is so important, because I believe that if my clients understand what's going on in their body, they are much better able to troubleshoot. They're much better able to implement the strategies that I give them. One of the important things that we always talk about, Jackie, is that where you're feeling the pain is not always where the root cause is, or what is generating the pain, or where the area of dysfunction is, right? Yeah. So in our time together, although we really did work on core strengthening, and we did talk a lot about generating support from the core, we really did a lot of digging in saying, like, why does your hip hurt? Why does your low back hurt? Go ahead. I see you smiling.
Have you ever watched Dr. House?
Yeah.
I feel like you're the Dr. House of physical therapy, because
that's the biggest compliment. Thank you.
Well, but what you're saying, we've done a lot of dry needling because I had these tension patterns that were longstanding from, sports and dance and all these things I did as a young kid that I had never really been able to rectify, and which I think is a miracle. I mean, my husband's gone to you for dry needling. It's helped his shoulder so much. And even just releasing those tension patterns allowed me to build strength in areas of my body where I couldn't target before.
Yes.
And then one of my favorite sessions with you, you walked in and you were like, I had an idea. I was thinking about you this weekend. And I was like, what? And she's like, I need to work on your feet. And I was like, okay, I'll take a foot massage. But it was really interesting because we realized, which I didn't know about, I had very immobile feet.
Yes, you really, really did. And I think that because you're a dancer, you move your feet in sort of like this very graceful ballet sort of way, even when you're walking. And I think the foot injuries changed the way that you were weight bearing through your feet. And that actually changed how your body was recruiting your muscles all the way up the chain. I thought of you yesterday, Jackie, because I had I promise you this happened yesterday. I was doing an evaluation and the client's primary complaint was pain with rotation in her ribs. So every time she twisted, she had pain. And I did her intake and we were doing the evaluation and she looked at me, mid-stance. I was doing my thing. I have everybody do these different squats and I have them do squats with the hands up and the hands down. And they're like, what the heck are you doing? You're a pelvic floor PT. Why are you looking at the way I squat? And then she was in a certain squat and she's like, oh my God, I forgot to tell you I broke my foot. So I said, oh, that's important. So as I'm doing my evaluation on her, and I'm always looking for the driver. So I start at the feet and I see if I change the feet, does that make a difference? I go to the pelvis. If I change the pelvis, does that make a difference? If I change the ribs, does that make a difference? So I started at her feet. I put her feet in a little bit of a different position, gave her a different option for weight bearing. And I said, okay, I'm going to hold your feet like that. And now go ahead and twist. And she twisted and she's like, what the heck did you just do? She's like, I don't understand that it didn't hurt anymore. Yeah. So, we have people coming to us all the time for pelvic stuff and, a weak core or even rib pain, and we end up treating their feet. And dare I say, my friend, you've had a couple of good foot massages in our office.
Oh my God, are you kidding?
Yeah.
I love it.
I know. I'm like, do not tell my husband that I am massaging your feet during our therapy sessions because I don't know if he'll let me come back home.
Well, and you asked me a few minutes ago what was most surprising to me. And I think I had a misconception that pelvic floor physical therapy would only be about my pelvic floor. And I would say that 85% of everything we've done has had nothing to do with that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really so many times I will evaluate someone's pelvic floor and their pelvic floor is really healthy and they're strong and their tone is great, but they have rigid ribs or they're stuck in inhalation. And Jackie, we always talk about the fact that the pelvic floor is part of the deep core system, right? So in order to get that core strong, in order to generate movement from your foundation, all of those core components need to be in line, in coordination, communicating with each other. I have a challenge for you, Jackie.
Oh gosh.
You ready?
Uh-huh.
You know me. We've been working together for a long time.
Yes.
What am I obsessed with? Come on, you know this.
I feel like there's a lot. Breath?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes. You got it.
You just put me on the spot. What if I answered wrong?
There's no wrong answer because I'm obsessed with a lot of things.
You are. I was going to say, what's the list?
I know, but you got it. I always say, I really believe that you can change any system in the body using the breath. Right?
Yeah.
James Nestor, who wrote the book Breath. If you're listening to this, I want you on my podcast. I'm obsessed with your book. I recommend it to everybody. I deserve a kickback. The least you could do is come on my podcast. Okay. James Nestor, if you're listening, come on my podcast. No, so we in just with our plan of care, if I could just think about how much breath work we did to resolve your pain, and the different kinds of breath work we did from diaphragmatic breathing, right? And feeling the connection between the breath and the pelvic floor. And then we kind of discovered that your front ribs were breathing, but your back body was not breathing so much. So we directed the breath in that direction. And, just doing that can help to relieve low back pain, and help to restore the communication and the coordination of the entire deep core system, right?
Yeah, so much so. And if I think about the most annoying part of my pain, it's probably that low back pain, especially having a toddler and running around after a toddler, and sitting all day in a chair. It's what's probably the most irritating thing to me. And so I do try and remind myself to take a deep breath if I'm starting to feel it.
Right. And we also talk incessantly about a concept called attention to task, right?
Yes.
Generating enough support from your deep core system to support the movement that you're asking it to do. So when you have back pain, that is your body communicating with you that, well, perhaps you didn't use an optimal strategy to lift your beautiful son. Perhaps, you were going to Costco or whatever it was you're doing, or carrying your business boxes and not using the right strategy or generating the movement from your core to support that. Your 2 goals that you wrote down in your initial consult in 2021 was decrease being prone to injury. So you wanted to reduce your increase your strength and decrease being prone to injury, and returning to exercise without pain. Tell us if you feel like that you've accomplished those goals after that initial plan of care. I know, you're in a little bit of a different place now, and we could discuss that. But speak to the fact, if you don't mind, about how really strengthening your core and resolving those root causes helped you get back to the things that you love doing.
Yeah. So knock wood, God willing, I haven't had a massive injury since starting to work with you. So I think that's a massive success.
Does that mean I don't have to give you foot massages anymore?
No.
Okay.
You're definitely giving me foot massages.
Okay.
Come on. You're not getting off the hook that easy.
All right.
So that's a win, right? And I would say I was playing tennis and doing a lot of things that I love. I, of course, went and got pregnant again. So I've taken a little bit of a step back, only because I'm going through the whole rigmarole of shifting center of gravity again and all of that, plus again running around after a toddler. But I was exercising, and I was doing the things I really like to do with a lot less pain.
I remember when you played tennis and you burst into my office and you're like, I played tennis and it was awesome. I remember that. It's so exciting for me when people want to so badly get back to something that they love doing that was hard for them, and they have this, freedom to do it without pain and feeling so much lighter and more supported.
Yeah.
How would you say, going into this pregnancy, and it's been so much fun for me because I saw you, after you had your son the last time, and we've, continued to work with each other, and now we're really getting you birth ready, and we're helping to support you during pregnancy. How did you feel going into this pregnancy? How did you feel? Do you feel that it was any different because your whole knowledge base and you were empowered with how to really support your body during pregnancy?
Yeah, well, I'm a lot more knowledgeable. I think I'm a lot more educated. I'm a lot more self-aware. And so when things happen, I'll be like, oh, I've been holding my son on my right side. I need to switch it to my left, even though it feels really uncomfortable, but I need to balance it out. Or, oh, I need to take a really deep breath before I do this because I'm going to be exerting myself, or if I'm going to bend down to pick something up. I think I'm just a lot more aware and conscious of my movements and how they impact the way I feel in my body. So I think that's been great. And then I think, strength wise, I'm a lot more conscious going into labor and delivery, which should set me up for success after, right? And in being able, I hate the term bounce back, but being able to return to the activities that I love doing with minimal pain, because at least I have a foundation that I didn't have the last time.
Right. I'm so excited for your postpartum recovery, because I think
that makes one of us.
I am. I'm super excited. grandma speaking here, because I think you're going to see such a difference in how you feel. I think you're going to feel such a difference in the connection that you feel to your body after birth, and just being able to reconnect and re-strengthen in so much more of an efficient way. The other thing that I just want to point out is we talk about automaticity a lot because the deep core system is reflexive. So you're talking a lot about being conscious, but when you're in the office, what I see you doing a lot more is automatically, reflexively using a better option for support, automatically really recruiting from your deep core system, exhaling before, exertion. And I think you're sort of at the point now where you don't really have to think about it with the little things. We all have to think about it with the big things, but it's really been a beautiful thing for me to sort of watch you evolve into. This was totally unplanned. The next question I'm going to ask you.
Go for it.
Is it okay if we talk about your glutes?
Totally.
Okay. Jackie, everyone listening, when I met Jackie, and I got to say, like, I'm a little proud of this, right? Because when I met Jackie, she's like, my glutes don't work. No one's ever been able to wake them up. If you can wake up my glutes, then I will be forever impressed, right? Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your glutes.
Well, what I've learned since is that I was overcompensating. So I had other areas of my body that were really taking on a lot of the tension instead of my glutes. So I had a lot of tension patterns that were preventing me from actually being able to target them. So no matter how many squats I did, no matter how many bridges I did, my glutes just wouldn't fire. And I remember one of our first, I think it was our intake or something. You're like, wow, they're really not firing. Where are they?
They really were not.
And that's where I would say the dry needling was amazing because it really helped me relieve the tension patterns that stretching and foam rolling and massage just didn't relieve. And so being able to loosen up those patterns has allowed me to access this whole other massively important muscle system that I was never able to access, which is why I'm like banging a drum all the time for dry needling. But which Susan does. So reach out.
We love dry needling. It's so we get such great results with it. Oh, did we wake up your glutes?
We did.
Yeah.
Yes. We woke up my glutes.
We woke up your glutes. I will never forget. Like we were like doing something in the office and you're like, I feel them. I feel them. Oh my God. I feel them. I feel them. And then every time you'd come back after that, you're like, I see a difference. I see a difference. Well, my glutes are working.
Well, and I would feel a difference. And then the amazing thing was I would see a difference. And I wasn't going to you necessarily for aesthetics. It's not like you're a trainer or anything, but I was like, whoa, I'm actually using these muscles. And
yeah.
Look at this.
So I think it's so sometimes interesting, a patient's perspective and a pelvic floor physical therapist perspective.
Yeah.
So I just, I am hearing you say that dry needling really gave me, allowed me to use those muscles. And it's true, a tight muscle really can contract efficiently, and we release them to give you access to them again. But really what was going on was that your hamstrings were dominating your glutes.
Yeah.
And they were kind of like your hamstrings and your low back were kind of overriding your glutes, and your body's so efficient that your glutes were like, they're doing all the work. I really think I'm going to go to sleep. And they did. And what we did was we released the tension in your glutes. We down train, we kind of calm down. We let your hamstrings and your back know, like, let's share the workload, right? And then we retrained a neuromuscular pattern. We call it a neuromuscular pattern because we do want the muscles to recruit and fire in a certain sequence that's most efficient. And that's so important because the glutes, first of all, and the pelvic floor are best friends. You can't have a healthy pelvic floor without a healthy glutes. So they're best friends, but the glutes are like powerhouses. I honestly am so impressed that you were able to like dance and move and be pregnant without using your glutes. You're like a strong mama just for that. Kudos to you, but I'm sure you feel so much better now.
I feel so much better, but that's probably why I was getting injured all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So a big piece of it. And I feel so much better.
I'm so glad. Jackie, what would you tell all moms, or all people that sort of have this puzzle that has not been able to be put together, or that are pregnant, or that have random pains? What advice would you give people? Because I do feel like you're a wise person.
Oh, well, that's very kind. Number one is go to Susan Winograd.
Oh,
but if that's not an option, number two is, first of all, address it. But make sure you go to someone that's focused on the root causes, because I think the biggest takeaway I've had from my experience with you is that it all comes back to the deep core. And if you're not focused on not only the deep core, but how that system relates to the other muscular systems in your body, you're not going to rectify any solution. And so I think in my past, it was a lot of symptom management. And now I've been really focused with you on the root cause. And that's made such a difference. And particularly with pregnancy, I mean, your body goes through so many changes. Being able to be aware or have those reflexes now, like what you're talking about, build those habits, has been such a game changer, especially when you're on the second or the third and things just happen earlier and you're bigger and all of that stuff. And the other thing, and you and I have talked about this, but it's surprising to me how little young girls know about this as well, because I was a dancer and so much of that they say, engage your core. And I was superficially engaging my core. Yeah. So I think looking back, I probably did a lot of damage that could have been reversed. And so I think there's an educational aspect to this too. Like if you have a daughter,
absolutely
teach them what a deep core is.
Yeah. And I think that, that's such an important point. And I feel like we can modify our language to teach children how to recruit from the deep core. At Pelvicore Rehab, we do treat pediatrics and we use balloons and we do it in a fun way. But I think when you ultimately show even a child how to do something easier, how to do something in a way that's going to make them feel better, they will integrate that. And I totally agree. And I think that, even we see that in young children, but also in gyms, in the words that we use even to tell people to recruit their core, like suck it in, or, I feel like language is so important. And I feel like if we had more consistent language to teach people how to generate their support properly, there would be less injuries. Mm-hmm. But also that I think it's so important that all of the things that you were feeling were connected. Yeah. Right. I feel like so many times my clients have gone to physical therapy and they have low back pain and knee pain and foot pain and hip pain. And they've addressed all of them separately. But really, I think what I have found, and I think the only way to do it, is to take all those pieces of the puzzle and put them together and really find why are all of those things hurting? There's got to be a commonality, right? And treat that. And then all of a sudden, all of those peripheral things start going away and resolving.
But that's why I call you the house of physical therapy, the house MD, because you're trying to figure out the diagnosis.
Thank you. I'm like the pain detective, right? I'm like,
I love that.
Right. One of my patients calls me the Mary Poppins of pelvic health.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. I love it. Thank God I have like the best job in the world. We have so much fun. Jackie, I could seriously talk to you all day. But we got to get to work, both of us. And I so appreciate you coming on and sort of spreading awareness to all other moms that, get pelvic health when you're pregnant, get it before you're pregnant if you have pain. Learn how to set yourself up for success so that you could do anything you want without joy. What is the number one takeaway you want to leave our listeners with before we go off? Number one.
Ooh, number one. Breathe.
Yes, love it. You know, I'm obsessed with that.
Breathe and engage. And the exhale is more important than the inhale.
Well, exhaling on exertion, right?
Yes.
We got to work with the natural mechanics of the body.
Yes.
Jackie, you are the best. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of your Pelvic Health Podcast, where we bring you the real lowdown on pelvic health matters. Please reach out to us at www.pelvicorerehab.com. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy your show. And remember to like, follow, and give us a 5-star review. Always keep in mind that you should be your own best advocate, and healing requires a total body approach.